Cain, what's up, dude?
Nature. Hey, how are you?
I'm good, man. How's it going?
It's turned up, sorry.
Uh,
Good, how are you?
everything looks okay. It sounds okay on your
Yeah,
end there.
yeah, it looks all good. I can hear you pretty well too, so yeah, it
Sick,
looks
awesome,
fine.
dude. First and foremost, thank you very much for taking the time today. Radical, man. I am
Yeah,
super fucking
thanks
excited
for
to
asking me.
hear your story and you know what you got, man. Digging
Yeah.
at this, you know, obviously my initial introduction to you is your artwork.
Hmm.
And obviously you have way more than that, just that going on. You have tons of shit.
Hmm.
But at the foundation of all this, you know, as far as, you know, you being a young man, you know, kind of bring us back to those initial interests, you know, possibly all end up revolving around art. But, you know, earlier ideas of just like books, shows, maybe films, TV, or some things that were, you know, that were interesting you when you're a little kid there growing up.
So I think like to be honest, like I think for me where most of it kind of started is like probably as like early as like stuff my parents were showing me when I was a kid. Um, Both my parents kind of were like grew up in like the metal and punk scene between like Denver, and my dad was living in Los Angeles a lot when he was a kid. So
Oh,
like I was really early introduced to like I guess more of just, like that side of things more often, than I guess a lot of other maybe kids growing up. So
hmm.
like my dad was showing me like Iron Maiden and like all these thrash bands in the 80s and punk bands. And then he was also showing me all these like horror movies as a young kid, because like he grew up
Oh
on them.
shit.
So like he wanted me to kind of grow up on them. So like I think my like first really early introduction to stuff was specifically like I wanted to draw like Eddie from Iron Maiden all the time. And then also draw like all the monsters that I saw in like horror films, like Freddy Krueger and stuff like that were like everything to me as a kid. So like
Fuck.
those early introductions were probably just like strictly from my parents. And it was like watching movies at my house and I'd see like some like weird monster from like The Thing or something like that. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. And then I just had interest in drawing because my dad's a tattoo artist.
Oh,
So um,
oh shit.
I
Okay.
naturally was drawing all the time as a kid just because of my parents and stuff like that. And my mom paints and stuff like that too. So just from that early age, it
Oh.
was like kind of, like a little vacuum seal of just like the same shit that I'm into now, just like at a younger age and like not as broad as what I'm into now, I guess. So yeah, I'd probably say like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
Uh,
Go. Yeah, you go
uh,
ahead.
yeah, so I think that's probably it. Like, I'd say my earliest stuff is just strictly from like stuff my parents were showing me as a kid, and that was like the
Oh.
earliest age, like even before like middle school or high school or anything like that. I was already into a lot of that stuff, and then when you become more self-aware and understanding of other things around you, you get to explore than the internet. So it's like I can
God
find more
damn.
cool shit from there. But yeah, it's like those movies when I was a kid, like Evil Dead and all that stuff, were like the first movies that I saw that like immediately was like, cool, I want to make stuff that looks like whatever I'm watching kind of thing. And then
Man.
outside of that, like old metal stuff.
It's so awesome. Holy shit. I mean, did you find yourself like, did you end up having like notes going home to your parents as far as like, hey, your kid came to school today and, you know, he was drawing Chucky on his folder. Like, we just want to
Yeah.
make sure everything's okay at home.
Yeah. No, I mean, luckily, like, I feel like I never had too many, like, I got lucky, I think, with a lot of, like, teachers growing up that weren't, like, total dicks or anything like that, Like, there was
Okay.
definitely a couple, like, I'd, like, would draw, I don't know, like, some dude getting, like, with, like, a chainsaw and, like, blood was everywhere on my drawings. But that wasn't anything weird to me because, like, as a kid, it was just stuff I saw in movies and it wasn't real. So, like, it didn't
Right.
bother me. But, in the post, things happening age where you probably might want to pay attention to a kid drawing like a bunch of people getting murdered on a piece of paper. I had a couple teachers.
Well,
And it was mostly like, "Hey, is this cool?" And my parents were like, "No, that's like pretty normal with him." But I guess that's not like I guess another good excuse either in the long run.
I
But
mean, it's a bummer though that like, you know, obviously you have to kind of pay attention to those things and be cognitive, but then also just, you know, like kids being kids and having like an interest in something and kind of taking it to the full like max, you know, for instance. I asked that question because myself, I have kids and my boy, when he was real young, went to school and asked at the library for like a Chucky book and a Scream book. He was
yeah,
like 4. He didn't actually
yeah,
know what those things were. He just saw like my tattoos and shit,
yeah,
and so thought it was cool. Now we're getting calls home from like school saying all this. It's like, oh god, come on, dude. Like,
yeah. I do feel like it's one of those things where it's like, it's everybody's got like a different upbringing and a different background, like I had friends in school who like weren't allowed to watch cartoons, and
Yeah,
like meanwhile I
right.
was watching, like I said, like I used to rewatch Evil Dead 2 like every day half the time when I was a kid. It's like my favorite thing in the world. And the going to school and like being confused on why some kids couldn't watch like SpongeBob, but then I was watching like movies with people getting hacked up was like just weird to me as a kid at sometimes. And like, or like I'd have like, I remember like having like sleepovers, as a kid, and then
Yeah.
I would want to watch all these movies, but then like I'd get like kids going home, like they wouldn't even stay the night because I showed them a bunch of movies like they didn't want to watch. And so like, yeah, I think I like as a kid, and then the same thing with like music too, like I am, immediately liked all these like metal bands, and like, you know and then all my other friends didn't even like music yet, I think, like
Yeah.
I can remember like some of my earliest music stuff was like specifically like Maiden, and I was like when I was a kid I like loved like the Germs, which is a weird one to like as a child, I
Oh,
think.
weird.
And then
Yeah,
like
right.
just in like, just those type of bands and like all these punk bands that my dad listened to, but none of the other kids really knew what that stuff was at a young age. So like
Mhm.
I just kind of was like, oh, that's fine, like it was whatever. But it's funny now where like everyone kind of knows that shit, but like as a kid
Right.
still, it was like, a
Yeah,
child.
I mean, it was the same way too, where it was like, being popular or a heavy band, somebody would mention like something
Mhm.
like Nickelback, and it's like,
Yeah,
I open my CD player and they're like, what's Slayer? Why is there like blood carved in this dude's arm?
yeah,
It's like,
no,
that's not
exactly.
heavy, brother.
Yeah, and that was the same thing with like I never had like a scene kid phase or anything like that,
Yeah.
So like I feel like a lot of people did, and so that was the other thing too. Is like people are like, oh, I like heavy music too, and it was just like, especially once I got a little bit older in middle school, I was like a little metal kid with like a vest with patches all over it and shit like that. But it was all these like death metal bands, but like I just never got into
Sick.
anything else. So like
I love it.
I also even at that era, I was like, I guess I just don't like all the same stuff, but it's okay. And
Now,
I feel like nowadays, a lot of people like it's like so broad. Like even my music taste is completely different than when I was 12.
it's funny too that you mentioned that. And I was just having a conversation with a couple friends last night about punk. Did you find yourself ever like, when people kind of talk about that, like, did you find yourself ever really falling into like, the whole aspect of punk and really digging into that? Because you kind of mentioned Germs, but then you also are talking like, heavier
Yeah,
metal and thrash and shit. Myself, I never really found myself, having an interest in punk, honestly. Hardcore, that was kind of my realm where it was like the closest thing. But what about
hmm
you? I mean, did you have a close relationship with punk, as opposed to
I think
heavier like thrash and shit?
yeah, I think to a level, like my for again, like if we're talking like really early, it was like stuff that like my parents were showing me because like my mom was like kind of like a punk back in the day. So like there was a lot of early punk stuff, and it's like we're like talking like borderline basic stuff. You know what I mean? It was like Dead Kennedys and Germs, and I was a huge
Mm-hmm.
Ramones fan when I was a kid, and the Misfits and stuff like that. It's like real basic stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
as I got a little bit older, I'd listen to a band like specifically like even like on YouTube, and then I would look at like the recommended on the side, and I would basically you know, find some other shit. And then that slowly evolved into me finding the early kind of stuff like Void, which is like that proto hardcore kind of
Oh,
stuff, it's
okay.
like, and like the Faith and stuff like that. And then once I heard that, and then I heard like Cro-Mags were like the big change for me. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, punk's cool, but like this sounds better to me. Like, and then I got into,
Yeah.
all the, huge wave of like the New York bands. I got into bands like Rest in Pieces and Breakdown, and then I got into bands
Yes.
like Killing Time, and then had a whole like youth crew thing going on for a minute where I was like only listening to a lot of like the youth crew bands and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So like punk was definitely the start for me because like metal music was always there, and that was always my main thing for a long time. And then but punk was always still like it to me was all the kind of the same shit to me. So like it was
Mm-hmm.
all just like music I would listen to in the same mood, right? It was like the same thing to me.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I'd slowly go from that kind of stuff into eventually listening to like hardcore bands and punk bands that are more hardcore adjacent punk, the early hardcore stuff.
Sure.
And then still at the same time listening to metal music and all that. Because like to me, it's kind of all the same stuff. It's
Right.
all heavy music and it's all just like I don't know, just like the same thing to me. Like I think to me it's like was why same thing mixed bills are cool with like metal and punk
Oh, dude,
music, 'cause that's like the
totally.
same thing to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
So like punk was definitely like if it wasn't for punk music in the start and like the early punk bands growing up as a kid, I probably would never have gotten into like hardcore and stuff like that. And I feel like it's a lot of people. It's like it's you start with punk. It's like an
Sure.
easier thing to maybe get into, and then you find your sub genre. You find what you like the most out of those things because like really hardcore is just like a sub genre of punk music
Yeah.
and the big
Yeah.
grand
That's
scheme of
that's
things.
that's true. I guess even thinking of it that too, mostly like a kind of a nod as far as like this wouldn't be here without pioneers of like
Yeah,
XYZ. Like, yeah, I see that for sure. I think it was just for whatever reason, like it didn't fully click with me. And when hardcore kind of was introduced to me, that's where I was like, oh, okay, this is still, punk in a sense. It's just a little bit more, like aggressive or a
no,
little chunkier sounding.
exactly.
That was where, I was coming into play. I'm like,
I
oh,
always thought
sign
it
me up,
looked
shit.
cool too. Like that was for me too. Like I definitely like never was like a punk. I never like was like dressed the fit,
Sure.
and 'cause I always thought it was kind of goofy to be honest. And but I thought hardcore was cool because like all these dudes for the most part dressed normal, and it was like you know what I mean. Or like just like so I was like, oh cool, this is like what I like about punk, but like that doesn't have the stuff I think is stupid about it. So like I feel like growing up in my scenes, I always feel like I never clicked with punk as kids as much,
Yeah.
just because like they were annoying. But it was just one of those things where it's like hardcore was just like that thing. Because again, it was like heavier too, and it was like faster, and it was meaner to me than punk music ever was.
Yeah,
And that matched
totally,
the like
totally.
death metal and black metal and all the other shit I was listening to. But it
Yeah,
was like another version of that. It was like angry and fast and mean and what I wanted out of punk music, but it took it to that level where I was like, cool. I'm like, I love all this metal music and stuff like that, but like there's a whole other side of other like music that's mean and stuff like that. That's not metal, which was cool
yeah.
to me.
And it's so sick too. I mean, as far as like listening back to some, some earlier like hardcore bands or whatever, and they're like, oh well, I was into shit like Entombed, or I was into shit, like, and they started like talking
Yeah,
about death bands. It's like, oh, okay, like now I see why
yeah,
this is clicking. Like they
exactly.
were trying to get, past that and be a little bit, more extreme, and that was just kind of the,
Yeah,
the product at the time. So, dude,
yeah. It's
okay,
like I
so
mean,
no, go
oh, go ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
I was saying like yeah, I mean like most of those bands you can hear, like there's like no doubt that like some of these bands were not listening to the Celtic Frost at the same time as writing these records, when they're like the
Right.
same riffs. So it's like I do think a lot of that kind of can go hand in hand, just like it is now.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's sick, man. I mean, and it's awesome too. Like just as far as like hearing that, and it being something where your upbringing, was different from mine. Where like I wasn't so much to the effect of to where like I couldn't watch cartoons, but like my parents weren't super cool with like having like the ultra gory movies or like parental advisory. But I always had the buddies that had all this shit and were introducing me to like Toxic Avenger and like
Hmm.
the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre when I'm younger, and I'm
Yeah,
like, what the fuck is this? So
yeah.
thank God for parents. It takes all sorts of kinds,
No,
dude.
yeah. I mean, it really is like for me, like at its root, like from ages. I understand music and like I can hear music and understand what I like early ages of life up to like probably middle school. If it wasn't for my parents, there would be like no ground roots to that stuff. Is because then I hit middle school and I start going out to shows and I start meeting other people and going into parts of the scene and stuff like that. That changes a lot for me, at that point. But yeah, if it
Sure.
wasn't for my
Okay.
my parents, it was like there'd be no basis or root to any of that.
Sick. Okay, I love that. Now, I mean, and we're gonna, kind of dig a little bit further back into that as far as, kind of like your play
Mhm.
into the music scene and different things too. One thing I got to get out of the way, because we kind of touched on horror movies, and as far as in
Mhm.
your work, I've seen, different little aspects that you've had and different drawings, and it just makes me fucking drool, especially from not knowing that you were, like a horror background.
Mhm.
As far as your initial like introduction, you mentioned some of the earlier monster movies. What is something, when you were initially watching some of these movies, what was one that really stuck out to you that ended up scaring you as a young man?
I think like it's funny because like if we're talking like movies that scared me, it, the one movie that scared like the shit out of me as a kid, which is like kind of embarrassing to say now, was the remake of 13 Ghosts, like that really bad 2000s movie. I watched
Yeah, I
all these
still
other
love
horror
that
films,
movie.
and it was I like it now as like an adult, but there was something like it was one of those movies that was like if I got in trouble, my parents would be like, "We're gonna put on that movie to like get me to stop being a dick." So like I think that movie was like the only movie that really like actually scared the shit out of me. I don't and like there's a couple other movies at like a young age that would like jump scare stuff would freak me out, you know, because but all the like 70s and 80s horror films never scared me or anything like that because I was always told like it's just makeup effects and it's just there's a director and there's a writer and there's actors and it's none of it's real. So I was like, oh, it's just not real, you know, it's just like people playing make pretend. And but like yeah, that movie scared me the most. But like I think a movie that stuck out to me more than anything, and still to this day is like my favorite movie ever is probably Evil Dead. That was like the movie for me. Like
Fuck yeah.
that was
Yeah.
the movie that changed. I mean, like that's like my Instagram name is from the like Ultimate Experience and Grueling Terror. That's from like the Evil Dead poster.
Oh
Like
shit.
yeah, like
Oh my God.
that's
Okay.
so yeah, like I couldn't figure out a name for like, that shit is I don't know. Finding names on Instagram is weird. And I was like, oh, it's just my favorite movie, so I'll just take that from the poster, and it sounds kind of cool. So like,
Fuck, man. That's
that
awesome.
movie like changed everything for me. It made me want to make movies. It made me want to draw. It made me want to like just do makeup effects, everything. I wanted to do all of that because of Evil Dead, because I watched Sam Raimi do it with no budget and do it cooler than anyone else at the time. And some people, I think, if you watch Evil Dead now, it's like, oh, this is kind of a cliche movie, but like at its time, there was like really nothing that was like as grassroots as that movie and as like innovative in camera tricks and makeup effects and being like that's like the complete DIY aspect of everything that I do. And like it was like Evil Dead was that movie that did that first to me. There was other movies, but like there's other low budget movies, but there's something about like the grit of that movie and the seclusion of that movie makes it feel like so much more like, damn, they just did that on their own kind of thing. So yeah, that movie like everything to me. And still to this day is like my favorite movie. And I watch it all the time still. And it's yeah. So probably movie that scared the shit out of me would be like 13 Ghosts. But
Like what part?
Evil
I mean,
Dead.
what specifically about that movie scared you? Or was it like was it a certain character?
I'm like to be honest, I'm trying to remember. I think there's like this one that has like a cage on its head, with, like
Oh,
long hair.
oh
In
yeah, yeah,
13
yeah.
Ghosts.
Okay.
It's like one of them. Not down with that. That was not cool to me. That was not sick. That just scared the shit out of me. And yeah. To be honest, if you get me in the right night, you might scare the shit out of me now with that, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. That movie just did it for me. And like, I was just talking to my dad not a lot about this, but like, I guess he took me to go see Blade 2 in the movie theater. And I had to leave because I started crying in that movie. So
Oh
Blade
shit.
2 would be the
Okay.
other one that scared the shit out of me because like those vampires with the big open mouth scared the shit out of me. And I love that movie now. So
I've never seen any of the Blade movies. I got to be honest. I've never seen any of them.
you gotta
I
watch
probably
those movies.
I gotta. It's funny because like my wife has this list of like things that I have to watch, and it's like once maybe every couple months I have to pick something from this, and it's like usually something that I'm just not like super into. But there's like Daybreakers. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, that's like a
It's like
Ethan
Sam
Hawke movie.
Neill. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
I did see that. Yeah,
That was
I've
one
seen
for
that movie.
a long time. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't
I
want to see it, and I
remember
watched it.
seeing that one.
Pretty good.
It's pretty good. I remember seeing that one like when it came out. Me and my like dad went to go see it, and I remember liking it. But I'll be honest, I probably haven't watched it since that came out.
Yeah,
But I do remember
yeah.
liking it a lot when it came out, kind of thing. But
I had to give her
yeah,
a
the
high
Blade
five. I was like,
movies
oh
rock.
shit. Those are the
Yeah,
other movies I was gonna get to. Is
yeah.
yeah, those are both on that fucking list too. So I'm gonna have
I
to dig
love
into
those
them.
first two Blade movies. There's like the soundtracks on those movies really, like especially the first one has like a really awesome uh, like remix of like a New Order track that turns into like a techno song, and it's really
Uh,
sick. And
oh
then
shit.
yeah,
Okay.
everything about that first and second movie, I love those movies. They're like on a pretty constant rewatch for me, to be honest.
Man, tell me about the Scream 3 soundtrack. Did you have that,
I didn't. No, that was like probably still. I don't
dude?
even remember. Like I didn't even get any like soundtracks until I got a little bit older, to be honest. Like I think my first
Oh, really?
CD I ever
Okay.
got was like a Gorillaz CD, to be honest. Like I,
Oh,
so like
that's sick.
yeah, I never. But there is. I mean, I do miss that era of like soundtracks coming out on like physical. Like the
Yes.
soundtrack. It was like music was made for. They don't do that as much. I feel like anymore. They
Mhm.
kind of do, but like, it's not like this like compilation of different bands. Like I remember like a big one for me was like the Crow soundtrack. I had that. Like
Oh
my
yeah,
dad had a CD
yes.
of that,
Hmm.
and that has like so many sick bands on it, you know. And it's so like that was a cool one for me. Like
Dude.
it's like first time I heard like Rollins band and shit like that.
Oh shit. Okay. I mean,
Like
and that was a
it's like
cool
weird
thing
shit
was
like
like
that.
Scream 3 had like it was insane. It was like for the time especially, I guess, but it was like
Mm,
System of a Down and Slipknot and like
yeah,
any of that type of shit. I think Static X was on there and it's
yeah,
just like
yeah,
some of the
like new
songs were
metal wave.
exclusive and yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, so I miss the shit out of that,
yeah,
and like you
yeah,
say as far as like having like compilations or something, and you would buy that and there would be like exclusive imagery like oh shit, maybe this is going to happen in the movie or well, whatever may have you. But
yeah.
yeah, those are
No, I know.
absolutely
I always
sick.
think those are cool. Some of those songs are also super sick. Like some of those one-off songs are like some of my favorite songs by certain bands. I feel like on those, like the for the Crow soundtrack, like "Burned" by The Cure is like one of my favorite Cure songs, and
Oh
that's just a
shit,
single for
okay,
that soundtrack. So it's like, yeah, they put a lot of cool shit on all those little soundtracks.
that's awesome. I remember
Yeah,
I think it was like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake or
hmm,
maybe even the
I
sequel.
remember
It
that.
had
Yeah,
Remembering Never on it. Do you remember
uh-huh.
that?
Yeah, I kind of
It's
remember
like
those coming out. I remember those because like I never got into a lot of that stuff, but like
uh,
I remember hearing like I remember like watching like trailers on TV
yeah.
and buy the CD with your thing and then play like a bunch of like compilation of the music, which was really really funny. But yeah, yeah, I do remember a
Now
lot of those.
what about like a local, what comes to mind as far as like your relationship with like a local video rental or theater? Was that, something that you guys, kind of favored one or the other?
So I think like Denver is one of those places where like there was a lot of really cool stuff that's like gone now, and there is like a couple of cool video stores. Like there used to be this like there used to be a store called Second Spin, and it wasn't a rental store, but it was basically a used DVD and VHS store that was around, and that was like the place I would go to every weekend. You know, outside like a Blockbuster when I was a kid, and I'd buy movies because they were like $3 each, and my dad would just be like, "You can pick out whatever you want because they're cheap," kind of thing. So that was like probably the earliest start of like picking out random shit that the cover looked cool. So I
So
would buy that,
awesome.
and and then as I got older, there used to be like a video store called Video One in Denver. That was really really cool. That had like was super curated with really cool stuff, and that's where I got into like weirder movies and like artsier movies, in like middle school and high school, or high school specifically, because my friends and I would go there and rent movies there all the time. And then like again, just going to the movie theater and like checking out whatever was playing, and we still have really great movie theaters here. Like we have a theater called the Mayan, which has been around
Oh,
forever, and the
oh yeah,
Esquire is another
heard
really
of that.
great theater that does like late night movies. They'll play, midnight movies still there, and so stuff like that just mixed and matched all over the place. I basically was like trying to once I got to the point where I could go wherever I wanted and go do things. It was like I wanted to go and find anything I could find possibly at a certain point. Like whatever movie was playing, I'm gonna go play the movie or I'm gonna go see it. If it fucking honked, then whatever. If it was awesome, I'm glad I found a movie I liked a lot. And so like really, it was just like for me trying to find as much and consume as much media as I possibly could for a long time. So like if it was video stores, if it was going to the movies, if it was buying movies, if it was downloading movies on the internet the legally, if there was anything I could do to watch movies, I would do it for a while. And that was like, because I was like, like before I even wanted to do art full time or anything like that, I always wanted to do movies first. And I was going to go to film school and all that stuff. And I didn't do that. I dropped out. But, you know,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
yeah,
But
just
you
because
ended
it was
up
like, I
going?
was like, I went to like, so I had a weird high school and middle school experience. I went to like a school where like 2 hours of your day you were focused on an art form, kind of like a college class. Um, so
Damn.
I did like visual arts for a while, drawing, and I moved into filmmaking. And my whole plan was I was going to go to school for filmmaking and do makeup effects. And I was learning all of that in school before I had graduated high school. And then I went to college for literally like a week and a half and dropped out because I was like,
Oh,
this
damn.
sucks and I don't want to do this. Which is, I was like, this is too expensive and I don't want to do it. So I dropped out, which is fine. I'm kind of glad I did. And,
Totally.
I pursued art more, which then eventually led back to doing movies and working on projects through art and stuff like that. So yeah, but yeah, as much as like those places, like Second Spin, the video for the video store, and the Esquire for the theaters and all that stuff, those were like the places to go to. Like, we'd like tailgate borderline outside of the movie theater. We'd get there like 2 hours early because they play like at midnight, so we'd get there at like 10 and like just sit in the car and fuck around and eat and drink and shit like that, and then go to the movie. So like that was really
Yeah.
cool to me. Like those are some of my favorite memories from high school. Was like sitting in the parking lot of this movie theater. That's still there. It still has a marquee up and everything. It's awesome. So that
That
theater rocks.
rules.
And if anyone's in the Denver area, they should go to the Esquire and support that theater because it's hard being an independent theater nowadays.
Yeah, for real. Wow. I mean, and I know my wife comes out every year, like Colorado Springs
Mhm.
area, but she has
Mhm.
different things too that I talk to different people, and I'm like, man, I gotta like dig into some cats. So I'm gonna have to mention that too, just as far as
Yeah.
whenever she goes back there, or if I go,
Anytime you
this
can.
next time.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're like they usually play movies every week, older movies every weekend, and they play like, independent movies that are new during the week, kind of thing. And once in a while, you can like, of course, like the if you're looking for horror films, like November or like September through October, they play like the best movies there. But
Oh,
like I think like
oh
last
man.
they played like Evil Dead 2 there not that long ago, and it's just a great experience to like see movies there. Like I saw so many movies growing up there, like for the first time, and multiple viewings of it. Yeah, that theater's awesome. And the Mayans also another one of those theaters that's just an amazing. And that one's like from like the 20s or some shit like that. And so that movie theater is
Holy
like
shit! Wow.
yeah, so like it's like all Art Deco and like painted ceilings and like giant drapes. It's like amazing. Like that theater is also really rad, and they play old movies there too. And that one's really cool. So like those two theaters, if you're looking to view something really cool, those are probably the places to go.
Damn. Okay. I mean, now within your excursion, maybe at some point you kind of started digging into the blogs online for the most extreme shit that you could find or the grossest, gnarliest movies. Three scenes that come to mind as far as within movies, and kind of like I mentioned, maybe it's disturbing or traumatic, gross. Maybe it was something even heartbreaking. Three
Yeah.
scenes that come to mind as far as in films that are forever ingrained in your brain. What would you say?
I'd probably say like one of the main ones that like comes to my mind off the bat would probably be the subway sequence in Possession. Um,
Oh,
just because like that movie was impossible to find for a long time. So like
yeah,
I
for
had a
sure.
friend who bought a Blu-ray from on eBay from like another country, got it shipped in, and then he put it onto his computer and gave me a flash drive. So like I got the flash drive and put the flash drive in my computer to watch Possession because I'd been looking for it forever. This was like I was like 14 maybe when I first watched that movie. I was like so badly wanting to see this movie that like everyone it was like a secret, it was like this one. Now it's a pretty widely known movie, but for a
Yeah,
long time it wasn't because even the
yeah,
VHS copies of Possession were heavily edited.
yep.
So there was like a one Blu-ray that came out by like Mondo made it, and they sold out immediately, and you couldn't get a hold of them. And this was before like you can stream it and all that shit. So and I remember watching that movie, and it because like that's probably like top three favorite movies for me, and like that sequence where she has like it's like that meltdown that in that movie, not to give anything away if someone hasn't seen it, but like that sequence, I was just like, it was so much raw emotion and acting and like
Mhm.
disturbing and sad and weird and confusing that I was like, damn, this is amazing. Like that is like everything that I wanted to see. I was like, wow, that was just so awesome. That whole movie is just amazing to me. And but yeah, that's probably one of them. Movies
Sick.
that like I remember seeing being like, this is fucked up and like weird, at least at an early age. Because I got to a certain point where like I was looking for like really heinous movies on the internet,
Mhm.
but like at a certain point, at that point, I was like, whatever to me. They didn't like bother me as much. But like earlier stuff, like probably like the whole weird sequence in Blue Velvet with the like bourbon scene with like Dennis Hopper. That part was like super uncomfortable and weird for me and freaked me out because I just didn't like the way he was talking and
I don't think
like
I've
that
ever
whole
seen
movie to
that.
be honest.
Blue Velvet?
Yeah, it's like a David Lynch movie. It's got like Dennis Hopper and the dude from Twin Peaks. I'm like spacing his name right now. Kyle
Oh shit.
MacLachlan.
Okay.
And it's really, really, really good. But it's like kind of a horror movie, kind of just like a weird thriller, but it's so odd and disturbing and weird and just uncomfortable and like the subject matter is uncomfortable and there's just like this specific sequence in the movie with Dennis Hopper like huffing this gas out of this tank and like just having like a weird baby meltdown that like I just remember
Uh,
seeing and being like, no, that's weird. It makes me uncomfortable. But again, one of my favorite movies too. It's like all these movies that I had these kind of weird experiences with, and like they were like really weird for me at younger. Now are like
yeah.
my favorite movies, you know. And then like I think it's just something that I
Huh.
remember like those are just movies that I was like, ah, okay, these are a lot. And then like probably like the other one to be like the one that actually I thought was like genuinely disturbing as a younger person that wasn't like a movie I was seeking out to find something disturbing was probably like uh Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, because that
Oh
movie just
man.
felt like so real. Like that didn't
Front to
feel like
back.
a yeah, like it didn't feel like I was watching like there's a couple parts that are like you could tell it's like a movie. There's like some bad effects in it, you know. But
Mm.
like for the most part, like specifically the opening of that movie, I was like, this seems like it's something I shouldn't be watching. And it just
Yeah,
seemed like
for
something that
sure.
was like not meant for the viewers. And like that, I think that's why that movie ended up getting such good reviews for being so like disturbing as it is, was
Hmm.
because it didn't hold away from like, wow, this is like real feeling. You know, like
Hmm.
this isn't like a movie that's like, you know. And then like eventually I got into like a bunch of really weird shit. Like the guinea pig movies I found when I was in like high school, and those were just like to me those were just ridiculous. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't even think they were like fucked up. I was like, these are just stupid. Like I like those movies and whatever, but I'm not gonna rewatch those ever again. And like stuff like that, or like weird shit like it was like Men Behind the Sun, that like Japanese movie that's like
Yeah,
super fucked up.
that
Like I
was
remember watching those
fucking
movies,
insane.
and like again, it was one of those movies where I was like, whoa, these like I should not be watching these kind of thing. Like they're just so fucking weird and disturbing. And but those are the point where I was like, I heard they were fucked up, you know. These other
Yeah,
movies to me were like, oh, I want to watch this movie, and they caught me by surprise because they were like scenes I wasn't prepared for. Whereas
sure.
like going into all those other movies, I know that, you know, Flowers of Flesh and Blood, that guinea pig movie, is basically just like a torture scene for 35, 40 minutes. So like I knew what I was
Right.
getting into at that point. But you know, so like I wasn't as like shocked by that kind of thing. It's like I was prepared, you know. Whereas everything else, it's like to me, the real stuff that is the surprise. You know, it's like I'm not expecting this. It's like puts you in an uncomfortable situation because you weren't prepared for it. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like trying to peel back. Hey, did you ever see the movie Salo?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Pasolini movie. Yeah, that was another one of those movies that like because that was a Criterion movie. Like it was on Criterion Collection. So like
I paid
as like a
65 fucking dollars for that movie, dude.
yeah,
And
that's not a
I got
movie
that
where like
home, not
yeah,
keeping
it's not like
this.
yeah, that movie is just like, you know, the only thing I would say like I remember that movie that was impressive. I was like, this came out in like what, like 70 or something like that. Like it's a really early movie, and I was like, how the fuck did this get made in this time period? Like this movie's way out there, and I like a lot of his other movies, which is surprising because, but that movie, yeah, it's like I watched that one time, would never watch that again.
No.
Like I would never
No.
put that movie on again. Like it's just too much, and it's just a
I,
lot. Yeah.
that was like the line where like my friends and I were going online to find like message boards and like
Mhm.
whatever we could for like the most extreme shit, like
Yeah.
cutting moments and fucking
Yeah.
August Underground's Mortem and
Yeah.
all these other like releases. In Salo, I feel like that was like the limit where it wasn't even a fucking horror movie, but I'm just like, what did I
Yeah, I wouldn't even
do?
say like
Like
yeah, I wouldn't even say that's like a horror movie. It's just like this weird movie about depravity. It's like and it's like a supposed to be like a drama, but it's not. It's a yeah. I
harsh.
mean, yeah. And like to me it's like a lot of those other movies that are in that like you're talking about like those specifically like even like the August Underground stuff, like those were just like to me I can get the appeal to some people on even those movies, but like I was just like not that interested in them. I was like, this is just not my thing, I guess. Like, you know what I
No,
mean? Like
no.
I can, you know, kudos for them for making something that like looks fucking horrible in the sense of like gut wrenchingly like horrible to sit through, you know, and like it looks like it's like I found it in the trash can, I don't know, like in a dumpster somewhere, you know. But like
Yeah.
there's a certain point where it was like this can only go on for so long before I'm just like whatever. You know what I mean? Especially
Right.
with like a lot of that stuff where it's like I'd be more impressed if you have a couple scenes of that and you have like really well like writing to build up emotion. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think in a lot of those things for
That
me.
balance.
Yeah, and it's so like some of those movies where I'm just like just watching like horrible torture for like an hour. I'm just like, all right, this is fine now. Like after a while, I'm just not into it anymore. You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
this is just like, and again, I was in that peak age range where like, I was going on the internet. I was like 16, and I was like going on like best gore and like looking up stupid shit like that on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, so like, and even that, I was like, why the fuck am I watching? Like, I was questioning it to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, all my friends like, you gotta watch this horrible video, and I was like, why? Like, so even at that point, like, I was like, all right, I think that was like a short-lived phase for me of like trying to find the most fucked up shit. Because I felt like after a
Yeah.
while, I was just watching kind of shitty movies that weren't that good, that were just like being like, see how far I can go. You know what I mean? And that was just not my thing.
It like luckily that turned into just finding like the most underground stuff, and that wasn't
Yeah.
even like not even saying as far as like gorish or
Mhm.
like these stupid fucking websites. Like it turned into like the obscure, where it was like,
Yeah.
oh, what is this like fucking made for TV snake movie that I've never seen
No,
before, but
exactly.
like and none of my friends talk about.
Yeah.
Like that was where it was kind of like I'm not I'm not interested in like seeing real people being killed and like all
Mhm.
of like this type of shit. So like where can I, what is it that I'm like yearning for? And it's like, oh, I want to see like I want to
Yeah.
find the shit that like other people aren't talking about.
No, exactly. Like that, the digging of looking for as much heinous shit led me to finding other things just because they weren't around. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
found all these
right.
like really cool, like shot on video horror films from the 80s that
Hmm.
are like super violent and super gory, but they're like have that heart to them because they're made by like a 19-year-old, or a 20-year-old at the time.
Yeah.
So like that, all that like need to find more shit and find the craziest shit led me to find a lot of like really, really good movies that I love now that I wouldn't have been able to find if I wasn't scouring the internet for like beheading videos. Yeah, it's just one of those
God
things where it's
damn
like
it.
that led me to that.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Well, I mean, it's a weird comfort, but it's something that, it's like kind of odd to think of that like in Michigan, friends of mine were doing the same thing that somebody at one point in Denver was doing the same and all around the world. So
No, yeah, I feel
it's
like it's funny because
not
it's
not
like
so foreign.
you bring up some things like that, and it's like, damn, everybody kind of did that at some point. Like it was weird. Like my normie friends were like, dude, watch
Yeah.
this fucked up video in like
What
high
is
school,
happening?
just because we were
Yeah.
just like dumb in high school, and just like the internet is that thing where it's like I grew up in that era where like YouTube was like the biggest it ever been, and or maybe biggest, starting to get as big as it's getting as it is like now,
Uh,
and so like we were just bored on on our phones and or on our laptops in
Fucking
school, like
around.
not trying to pay attention. So it's like you just kind of find shit, and then that leads to a whole other thing. So.
All right. What about so like in 2017, you have a post of some sort about the Goat Man. I've never heard this. I don't know what the fuck this might be. And it just kind of it was like a drawing I think that you had of this.
Yeah.
Is this like a local myth or like what is this based on something?
So I think it's probably around the time of me just drawing goat things for like metal album covers and like
Oh,
scouring the
okay.
internet for inspiration. And then I think it's like some weird like cryptid from like some random time that I found like on the internet, and I just thought he was cool and he looked like the drawings I was making because like there was a certain period where like my main goal was to draw covers for like blasphemous death metal bands, like stuff like Blasphemy and like all these like and like all they
Love it.
like Chris Moyen was a huge like inspiration of mine, and he did all like
Okay.
the
Yeah.
Beherit covers and all that and like the Blasphemy covers and shit like that. So like and there's always like ripped like jacked goat dudes with like machine guns and like the big old knives and like chain belts that I was just like these are the coolest fucking things I've ever seen. And then the music was like these giant like fucking ripped dudes just like listening to black metal, and I was like this is so cool. So like I feel like that was around that time of me just wanting to like it's like I was like this is cool, and that was also like I think pre me paying attention to like what I now I'm pretty like I just post my art and I post that kind of shit, and that's just probably me just being dumb and bored and posting up shit I find on the internet. Like but yeah, it was like that
It
era of
was
me just
awesome.
like there's like a ton of drawings from that time. It's like just goat men killing zombies and shit like that. Like that was like my main drawing inspiration at the time was like goat dudes killing things.
I mean, so it was funny because when I like stumbled on that, I was also listening to it was like some YouTube videos about like conspiracy theories and like mysterious happenings and fucking creatures and shit. Now, and it's something I've never really dug into, but like as far as like local mythology, do you guys have any sort of like Bigfoot types of? I would imagine there's something that is local to
I
you guys
think
as far as a creature.
I don't even know. Like as far as I remember, like I don't even know. Like we have the mountains, like we have the Rocky Mountains, like that, and like
Right.
there's Bigfoot stuff up there. But like I don't know. Like it's like
There's
maybe
got to be
there's like no
fucking
actual.
something up there,
Yeah,
dude.
there's like so like there's like a Bigfoot museum in the mountains. That's cool. You know what I mean? But like to be honest, there's nothing
Really?
that I can remember. Yeah, there's it's cool. It's like a roadside attraction thing. But like
Oh
when I was a kid, like I
shit.
don't really remember anything like that. Like as far as like cryptid stuff, like I remember there's like myths and weird legends. Like when I was a kid, there was like the whole Alfred Packer thing, which was like the cannibal that was like he was like a hunting troop and they all died and he ate all of them. That was like a thing
Oh
that
shit.
happened here, and like this was like like all long time ago. It's like the late 1800s, I'm pretty sure. Um, yeah, I don't remember like if there was specifically like one, like even like I feel like if you like there's like a map you can look up like cryptids in each state, and I don't even remember the Colorado one to be honest, because like
Gordo says fucking Mothman. I don't know what the fuck that is, but
yeah, Gordy is the Mothman's not even from here. That's the other thing I'm pretty sure. But you have a lot of moths. Like
okay.
I'm pretty sure Mothman isn't from here. I'm pretty sure that's like East Coast. I'm pretty sure that's like far away.
I've
And
never heard of it.
then yeah, Mothman's like it's exactly what you think it is. It's like a Mothman, like it's like a
So
it's
like
like a
kind and
dude that's like
generous and fucking like providing you with like cool air or what?
yeah, it's like you put your car lights on and he just fucking slams into you is what he does. No, but
God damn it.
like apparently Gordy's seen the Mothman, so if he's seen it, I take Gordy's word over anything else on this planet. So,
Damn. The,
but yeah,
the
and then like,
Stanley
yeah, like
Hotel is
again,
something
like
else to
yeah,
mention.
like that's another thing too. That's like the Stanley Hotel is like that's the Shining Hotel. I mean, there's
Mm.
like a ton of shit. Like we have so many old buildings here in Denver. Like half of them are like haunted. So like there is tons of shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, but I personally have not. I mean, the Stanley Hotel is probably the big one here because it's like the Shining Hotel, or the
Sure.
original Shining Hotel, where like Stephen King wrote all that shit. Um,
Yeah, right.
but
Okay. Have you
yeah,
ever seen anything? Do ghosts exist? Do you what's
uh,
your take on that shit?
yeah. I mean, to me, I feel like my beliefs and all that kind of shit is that like I don't really feel like as people we will ever have the full comprehension of what exactly goes on, past anything. So like there's tons of shit that like I've seen and done and felt that like it's completely unexplainable to me, and like so yeah, I would say I believe. Be honest, you can probably convince me of most things. I'd probably like believe that there's like gnomes. There's probably like gnomes living in my yard right now. If you tell me, like, 'cause I'll be like, I didn't put the hose over there. It must have been a gnome. That's me.
Oh, shit.
But yeah,
Oh my God.
I
Dude,
don't know. I just feel
that
like
is fucking
I
funny.
definitely believe in all that shit. Like if I had the choice, I like if I wish I've seen a Bigfoot. I wish I've seen a Mothman. I haven't, but it doesn't mean I might not eventually see a Mothman or a Bigfoot. Maybe I will.
Man, I mean, the next time Gordy sees one, he's got to fucking get a picture. Otherwise,
Yeah,
that's how shit happens
if
nowadays too. Like even at shows, it's like for whatever reason, like you have to go to a hardcore show and some sort of big thing has to happen, for it to be like a fucking like a
yeah,
vibe or whatever the fuck people
no,
want. It's just like
yeah,
enjoy the opportunity. I saw a
no,
fucking
exactly.
Bigfoot.
I would
Believe me
much
or
rather
not, I don't
have
care.
that experience than have to explain to someone like, I swear this isn't fake. Like, you know what I mean? I'd rather just like
Right,
be like, I saw a
right.
Bigfoot, and then they'd be like, no, you didn't. And I'd be like, all right, fuck you then. Like I saw a Bigfoot. I don't need a picture. Okay, I have my memories. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
shit.
exactly. Like, but
Oh
if
man.
Gordy does see a Bigfoot, he better call me. I don't even know if he's still watching this, but yeah, if he sees Bigfoot, he better fucking hit me up. We're gonna go lift with him. So.
Dude. Okay, so kind of working, well, kind of stepping into your work as far as like with bands Spy, Candy Apple
Mhm,
Giallo, Video Drone, like just absolute radical fucking shit. When I'm initially
mhm,
seeing your stuff, and then it almost like artwork brings me back to thinking about like my early days of having interest in film and having interest in music, where it's like looking at the liner notes or looking at the director
mhm,
and like, oh shit, what did he also do? Like this is the
Yeah.
same kind of situation when I'm seeing like your work with maybe even Spy might have been the earlier thing, or Candy Apple, I can't remember, but and
Mm.
then looking into like who shot this or where the fuck did this come
Yeah.
from. Where, can you tell us about some of those things as far as like some of these projects that, anything that might come to mind as far as either your art or photography
Yeah.
within,
Yeah.
working on some of these things.
I mean, like with all of those bands listed, which is kind of cool about those specific ones. 'Cause, I do commissions for, I'll do a commission for anyone that really needs it, kind of thing, or hits me up, kind of thing, and wants to work with me. But those specific bands, what's cool about a lot of those bands for me is that like they're all my friends first. You know what I mean? And like doing that kind of work is like the best work. And like something like Candy Apple, I've been working with since I was like 16 because I used to run a cassette label when I was in high school, and I helped put out the first Candy Apple demo. Um, and from there, they're like all my friends, and it's like now, like now I've done, a video for them. I've done some promo stuff for them. I shot their last album cover, and like currently, we were working on a really big project that's like not announced yet, but we have like a really,
Whoa.
really big project coming up right now that we've been working on a lot. But all those guys are like my friends. Like I went on tour with Candy Apple, and so like those guys are just like good friends of mine. So like working with them is just awesome because it just reminds me of like when I would work with my friends in projects in school or some shit. And same thing
Sure.
with like, like Giallo. I've known Jake for a while through the music scene and the hardcore scene. So like he hit me up to do that, and I was just like, yeah, I'm down. And Spy's another one of those things. Like those are some of my like favorite people, and like legitimately like Peter and Drew and Cody and Tommy Touchdown. He's like all those dudes are just like my favorite people to work with, and like they're like seriously like people that are like I would consider like close friends of mine. And when Peter hit me up about the Spy stuff, it was like middle of COVID, and he was just like, "Hey man, like we made this like COVID project kind of thing," and he's like, "Do you want to just like throw a cover together for it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then now fucking kids are getting that tattooed on them, so like that's a crazy weird thing, like insane thing to do. But yeah, like all those bands, and Videodrome, same thing, is like Videodrome I did some work for only because I fucking like my friend Cyrus was in that band and Gordy was the drummer of that band. So like those are just my friends. So like
Oh,
of
okay.
course I want to do something for them. And like and Videodrome was a big one for me because like I love that movie and I thought it was sick that their name was Videodrome and it's like a cool band name.
Totally.
So like I was like, yeah, please let me do a Videodrome drawing or some shit like that. Like at the time it was just like doing stuff for my friends, and the Spy thing now has led to like I did both EP covers. I did the split with Maniac cover. I did a music video for the first EP. I just shot the new album cover and did the layout of that record, and I just did another video for them. So like for them it's been like a residency almost a little bit,
Mhm.
like they just hit me up to do stuff. I even just did their like flyer for their show opening, and I'm not even going to that. And like yeah,
Okay.
it's just like working with those guys has just been it's easy because it's just like they're my friends. Every time they come to town, they are crashing in my place, and last time they took an extra day off to like come hang out and stuff like that. So
That
like
rules.
those guys are like my favorite people to work with, outside of any sort of music or anything like that, just because they're just like good friends of mine and stuff like that. And same thing is like, the Denver specifically here as far as locals is really tight. We
Mhm.
all know each other, and everyone in like my age range met the people above us that helped us get to where we are now, and then now we're in the place where we are. So it's like all of us have kind of worked together. If it's not, I had to work a door with somebody when I was in high school at some music at a DIY space, or like I had to help put a show together. Like
Mhm.
that's how you kind of get to know everybody, and then we've all been really tight knit for years now. So it's like it's super easy, and it's even easier when they write really good music. Like Denver's music scene
Totally.
is specifically in hardcore is, in my opinion, like, and for a long time was the best to me. Like
Mhm.
especially with all like that big wave of Youth Attack shit that came out in the 2010s. That was like changed a lot for a lot of us. It made all those like punk and hardcore bands my parents showed me, and it turned it into, oh wow, this is like happening in my town, in my city, and I can go see
Right.
that, and I can go meet these people and go work with these people and meeting all those people. So like that changed everything. So like being able to work with my friends and do that now and work with all those bands is like awesome. So
And that's something too. I mean, like the answer that you give, like that's like an inspiration as far as for anybody who might be frustrated with like,
Yeah.
being in hardcore at a time, or like kind of like being in a slump, or having the conversation of like, oh, why aren't you making money, or why aren't you da da da? Like the close knit, like tight knit bond between like multiple aspects of like putting on a show, getting the artwork, getting the flyers, getting the music put together. Like there's just so much to hardcore that is always like a
Yeah.
revolving door of like inspiration, and to keep on fucking doing the shit just because of the integrity behind it.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
I
it's like,
love that, man. It's awesome.
yeah, it's one of those things that's like, maybe the contrary now, but for a long time, no one made money off any of this shit. Like now you can make money off of being a punk and hardcore band because it's a super popular thing nowadays. But like
Mm-hmm.
forever, I was doing work for free. I was like,
Right.
when I was starting doing flyers and stuff in Denver when I was in like high school, I didn't charge anybody, and I didn't charge anybody for commissions because it was like I didn't play an instrument, right? So like I was like, well, here is my two cent, or like here's my like contribution to all of this, right?
Totally.
Like I want to be a part of it, and I was doing it at a young age, so it was like, well, what I'm gonna do is like, well, fuck it. If someone needs a flyer, I can do the flyer, and I can probably do it really cool. So it's like, might as well do it. So it's like, it's one, so that the show has a good flyer, and two, it allows me to do work, at the same time, because
Right.
it's like when a show has like a bunk ass flyer, it's usually not that like no one wants to fucking go to that. You know what I mean? So it's like if I could do a cool flyer, and so like, that's how it was for a long time, and that's how you build these relationships, is that you just benefit off of each other, and you're mutually benefiting off of each other to create a scene and a space that's tight knit, and and that's something that you build up over years. It's not something that like I feel like that even nowadays is like hard, because it's like I feel like a lot of people just want to jump into something and be doing the best they at it, whatever, but like I did so much stupid shit for so long to get to a point where I'm like happy doing it now. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where it's like I started going to punk shows when I was like 13, and started
Yeah.
meeting
Okay.
people at a young age, and I started booking shows at like 15. So like doing that kind of
Damn.
stuff and meeting people and just doing that kind of shit. Like I did flyers and doors for shows for like 3 years straight. I never made money off of that. I
Mm-hmm.
never did any kind of work for that. And still to this day, like I'll still hook up people that I know that helped me when I was 15 to do shows. I'll still hook them up with shit just because, in my opinion, like they deserve that for helping me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
That's awesome.
would never be where I am at without other people, and I would never be where I'm at without certain people in the music scene that have like lifted me to that place at a young age, which like shit, I don't even know if I would do at this time. You know what I mean? Like they were super gracious of like being like, oh, look at this, like, little like teenage kid who like likes all this shit. Like,
Yeah.
why not just let him do it as if he was like a, someone at that the same, age range or had been around. So they just let me do that. And so that's why like bands like Candy Apple are so important. One, because they fucking rock. Two, they've been with me. So I've been working with them since can like literally since I was like 16 or 17. Like I've been working with that band since like they started doing shit. At some point I've been, helping with shit. And then now we're to the point where like I'm doing a bunch of work with them, and I've been on tour with them and stuff like that. And same thing, it's like kind of like that the Spy thing is like I've been working with them since like the band started. So like they're one of those bands where it's like it's fun to work with them and stuff like that. And like I think none of us even expected them to fucking blow up the way they did too. You know? Like
I mean, it's always a great surprise. Shit.
yeah, no, I'm stoked. Get that
Can't
money.
ask for
Get
anything
that
more.
bag.
Yeah. Well, and I gotta say too, because I once you started kind of like with mentioning as far as what specifically with Candy Apple, I remember when I interviewed Tristan, we were having that
Mm-hmm.
conversation. He was saying that you guys had been like way back, so I guess I did remember as far as that you guys had that connection from
Yeah.
even early on too. So
Yeah, they just hit me up to
and
like, oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Oh,
No, no, you're good.
they hit me up to do like a tape, and that was it. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I'll put out
Mhm.
your tape, and that was it. And from there, it's been the same.
Yeah, it's so sick. Now, as far as some of your projects, like through the years, just different things touching on your art and things that you've put out, over time. I wanted to, touch on
Mhm.
a couple of things here.
Yeah.
First off, being the Exorcist design that you did for the Isolation Man
Oh, cool.
print or T-shirt. I know it was a
Mhm.
T-shirt. Was it a print too?
I think it was just a T-shirt. I'm
T-shirt.
sure. I think he did like
Okay.
two colorways on it. So there's like a
Okay.
tan, and then there's like a black shirt. But
So sick. I mean,
thank
what
you.
can you tell us about your take on this? Somebody drops,
So
saying, "Hey, I want you to do Exorcist," and we get
the
this
way
sick
that
design.
started was um, Dylan from Full Hell, because he runs Isolation, man.
Mm.
I did some Full Hell work, and like he's the fucking best to work for. He's like extremely easy. He like lets me do like stuff I really really want to do. You know, like those type of commissions, and I'm like, this is exactly like thank you kind of thing to let me like one pay me to do this, but also like it's just a fun drawing. And he was like, hey man, I have this bootleg company and we do like movie t-shirts, and he's like, I don't know if you're interested in movie shit. And I was like, yeah, I like, you know, I love movies and stuff like that. And he's like, well, he's like, I have two designs that I think would be really cool for you to do, and one was Eraserhead and the other one was The Exorcist. And I was immediately super down for that. And I think like for the Exorcist one, I just was like, I don't want to do Reagan. I don't want to like make a, you know what I mean? Like it's too much of a like something I see all the time. And like that's kind of how I feel about in general like movie bootlegs. It's like I like a lot of people who like hand draw them and stuff like that, because it's like there's too many like fucking Xerox bootleg T-shirts out there, you know. So I was like stoked, and I was like, so I don't want to do Reagan. I don't want to do like a specific scene from the movie, but I wanted to do something that was like mixed together. So like I was like, the Pazuzu statue would work in my style, and it would be really cool. And then I was like, I'll have it throwing up on a cross because that's sick. And then I did like all these like cuts in the back to like represent like all the cuts on Reagan's face and stuff like that. So like that was just super fun to do because I was able to like dig into a movie that I love, but try to find imagery that's not the same thing. Because it's like if I do a Reagan cover, it's just gonna look like a Negative Approach T-shirt. It's like, you know what I mean? So like I don't want to do that. I don't want to like. It's like what else can you really do at that point? You know, because it's like that's the same imagery. You know, there was like a couple ideas I was messing around with. I was like originally gonna draw like a bunch of like the when she's like crawling down the stairs. I was gonna draw that like a bunch of times, like twisted together and stuff like that. But I
Oh
didn't do that,
shit.
and I did that design instead. And I that was a super fun thing to work with. And then like I said, like Dylan is awesome to work with, and working with Isolation Man or Full of Hell or whatever has just been awesome because like yeah, it's like feels so nice to work in a zone that just feels comfortable to me, you know?
Dude, and you know, I gotta mention as far as like consumer wise, you know, just a fan who's sitting back and seeing things coming up for sale or, you know, a pre-order of some sort.
Mm,
We're like in the most of golden ages of fucking
yeah.
horror, anything physical
Hmm.
media, you know what I'm saying? Like merchandise
Yeah.
wise, anything. And the amount of like kind of how you mentioned, there's like the copy, you know, kind of typical type shit where it's a cover or it's a main character, but
Mm,
the amount of also like awesome obscure shit, like how when I
yeah.
initially saw the Pazuzu shirt and I'm like,
Mm,
this is
yeah.
fucking awesome. I know exactly what it is, and it's kind of like a hey, if you know, you know kind of thing, you know, where like
Yeah, and
somebody's
that's like
walking
my
by and be like,
thing is
is that
exactly
Exorcist?
because like yeah, the thing with The Exorcist is like that's like a big movie, right? That's like most people, you know, probably have at least know or heard The Exorcist. Like, how can you make that not the same thing that like someone would recognize right away? You know what I mean? Especially when you get
So
a hand
sick.
draw that or like do an actual physical drawing on that kind of stuff. It's like, you know, that's just like the way it goes with that. It's like I want to try to not do what I've seen before, and that's like any goal of an artist, right? You don't want to like just have the same shit as someone else. So it's like
Totally.
that was a super fun design, and yeah, working with him was awesome on that.
Pulled it off, brother. That was fucking
Thank
absolutely
you.
sick. I love that. Next up, I wanna touch on and it's something that I've always loved and I've always thought is so cool is zines and you know
Mm,
in particular different people's takes on them. So you had at
mm.
one point an analysis of possession. Horror movie
Yeah.
zines wasn't ever a thing that your doggy fucking
Mm.
knew anything about. What tell me about like how you got into this and how long you were doing, you know, specifically horror movie reviews. I know you had that for a while too.
So I in high school I ran one issue of a zine that was really really big, like a really thick zine. It was like 40 pages, and there's a lot of band interviews and some movie reviews. And I didn't like doing the format of like a big zine as much because it was like a pain in the ass, and I didn't like the way I did it. I did it all like digitally and stuff like that, and I just I didn't like it as much. So I used to work at for a long time for like 4 years. I used to be an administrator for an after school program with kids, and I worked in an elementary school for like I had like it was like a 9 to 5 working with kids, and then I would do after school programming for them and stuff like that. But the best part of that job was there was a Xerox machine there that schools get free or like very discounted paper and ink, so I didn't feel bad using all of it. So I then um, in high school, again, Possession was like one of my favorite movies, and at the time, it was still one of those movies that like you people couldn't get. Now there's like a remaster of the movie, and you can stream it on Shudder and all that shit,
Right.
but you couldn't get it. So, in my free time, I was like, might as well. Like, I wrote up a little thing about like just kind of like what I got, the different symbolism and possession and stuff like that, just because I was bored and at the time things were really slow with work, and I just needed to feel like I was doing something. So I was
Hmm.
like, I'll cut and paste and I'd Xerox every page and put together like a physical zine that I made like 20 copies of. And I gave
Damn.
them out to people that like emailed me or messaged me. And to be honest, I'd love to do something like that again if I felt like I had the
It's
time more.
got to
And
be a
now
lot, man.
I don't have the resources as much. Like now I have to go to a FedEx and Xerox, and then it costs more money. So it's like I can't make them free, and like that's not
Yeah.
fun to me. I'd rather just give them out. Especially because like I feel weird paying someone to fucking hear what I have to say about a movie. Like that's just like, you know what I mean? So it's like, as long as it's like that kind of stuff, I'd prefer to maybe just do it. But yeah, maybe
Mm.
one day down the line, I'll be able to get my shit together and put together like a bigger zine that's just all movie related shit and reviews, and have other people contribute and shit like that would be cool too. Just because like
That's so
zines were cool to me.
sick.
Like, I still love zines and still think it's
Fuck
one of the
yeah.
coolest forms of physical media, and people should totally do it because the internet is stupid and we have to deal with that kind of shit all the time of like everyone's opinions out there, but like having a zine is so much cooler. It's like, get off your phone and read something a little bit. You know what I mean? It's just like it's nice to have that kind of media. And anyone that does zines, I always try to pick them up, or if it's their photography zine, or it's an art zine, or it's actually reviews, or it's bands. It's just cool that people still do it. And it's also like that's a form of media within music and movies and all that that's like been being done forever. Like it's like
Mhm.
zines. There was zines, specifically like political based zines like in the '60s. So it's like you can the '80s was like a huge time for horror magazines and horror zines and stuff like
Yeah,
that. And punk
totally.
music had zines everywhere. And there was zines on everything. There was like zines on post punk bands and techno shit
Hmm.
and metal. And it was just cool. And they're really fun to make too. And I don't know. I just
Yeah.
like doing them a lot. And that possession zine was just like a little analysis of the movie that I wrote about and just put out there just because like, something to do, I guess.
Looks awesome. Yeah, it looks sick.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I gotta
Thank you.
apologize because I didn't mean for me to have such a cackling roar right after you were mentioning, like working at the school. But it was funny to me because you're talking about like working with kids and after
Yeah.
school and all this, and you're like, and the best part of this job is just a Xerox machine. It's just
I
like
mean, it was a
took me
big, I mean,
fucking off
of course, like the
guard.
actual working with the kids was great, but
I
dude,
know, yeah,
having a
I
free
can't take
Xerox
that
machine
away.
was awesome. Like literally, it was like the cool. I literally made so much fly. Like every punk show, I'd literally be like, I taught art there, for after school programming, and so I would teach an art class after school, and all the kids would go home by like 5:30, 6 o'clock from the after school program, and then I'd print like 150 flyers. Hopefully, like no one from my job, but my old job is watching this. But like, I I would print like 150, 200 flyers for a show,
Oh
and
shit.
give them out to places. So it's like I was doing all of this like scene work, but like the thing about doing it yourself is finding the most efficient way to do it yourself
Yep.
because I don't have money. So
Yep.
it's like if there's a place where they have literally gallons of fucking ink at the school and fucking hundreds of toner and every kind of paper I can think of,
It'll be
I'm
all
gonna
right.
use it. Like I'm gonna like
Yeah, that'll be all
it's
right.
not the end of the world, like I mean during the day when I'd worked for assisting other classes, I would literally be printing like 400 pamphlets. So it's like, and they don't even like they were like, "Oh, you messed up. We messed up on all of them. We had to reprint them." And they were like, "It's fine. We get it for like nothing because they get all the cuts on that because they're a school." But yeah,
Yeah, right.
that was awesome.
That
Every
is
day I dream of
so
having my
sick.
Xerox machine back in my grasp,
All
but I don't have it.
right, this next thing, I gotta grab something really quick. Hold on, just 1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, I completely forgot I had to grab this for this next aspect here. We got the fucking release of the
Oh,
Giallo
nice.
tape. Tell us
Yeah.
about this bad boy. Okay, so this is for the record release.
Mm,
I got a little roundabout way online to fucking find this
right on.
bad boy, and I'm super stoked to have this. What can you tell us about working on the cover art there?
So like I remember it was way before that band had started. I think Jake was in town for a show or something here, and he was telling me he was like, "I'm doing a band, and he's like, I'm gonna call it Giallo," and I was like, "Oh, sick!" immediately because like I'm a huge fan of Italian stuff and specifically Giallos, and so we started talking about movies like that, and we talked about like Tenebrae and Bird of the Crystal Plumage and like Four Flies on Grey Velvet and Torso and all these other movies that like I love so much. And he was like, "Oh, cool." He's like, I'll hit you up to maybe do some work for it. So like a bunch of time had gone by, and he hit me up for it, and he was like, he's like, "We want just like kind of some giallo imagery kind of stuff." So I was like, "Cool." I was like, "I'll do like the big things, right? Like that, like the big, strong, bold giallo kind of shit." So it's like I did that, and it was super cool to work on it because like I've done a ton of drawings, like personal drawings that were like giallo based drawings for a long time, and it was cool to actually do it for a band, and stuff like that. And then I did the layout on that tape too, so I xeroxed a bunch of the photos from their like live shows and put the inside and stuff like that. So it was fun
Oh,
working on
sick.
like that
Okay.
kind of stuff. And again, like it's like one of those things where like I got to work for somebody that I've been friends with and that I know, and that's always like cool to me. So it's like, and it was cool because it's like, anything movie related that can also tie into my art, I'm stoked on. So like doing a giallo design is always cool and fun. And I just got to like, pull out some stuff from like, the bleeding eyes stuff comes from like City of the Living Dead, even though that's not a giallo, but like the scene where she's like crying all the blood.
Oh
Yeah.
shit!
So like that stuff,
Awesome.
I always draw that in my drawings just because like I love that scene in that movie. And then, like the gloves and like all these like knife marks and just different stuff from, like that's like to the blind eye is cool to see and look at, but like at the same time, it's like all these giallo kind of references to movies and being able to tie all that in together is like just it's really fun and cool for me to do.
I love that. Damn, I never even. I mean, obviously, you have different things where I think it's hearing from the inspiration versus like looking at something and being like, okay, now I see that from like the inspiration aspect. But that is so sick. That
Yeah,
movie fucking rules.
yeah, it's like
Um,
Fulci was like he was huge for me when I was in high school. So like
totally.
watching I watched every single Fulci movie. He's in like 100 movies too. So like I watched every single fucking Fulci movie and like every like The Beyond is one of my favorite movies ever made. And like yeah, so like City of Living Dead is also one of my favorites. Like the whole like hanging priest like throwing up his own guts and shit like that. So it's just like it's crazy. That movie rocks. Yeah,
Do
I
you
mean
still
soundtracks.
collect movies at all or no?
Yeah, I mean, I have like a pretty large VHS collection
Oh, okay.
that I
Shit.
acquired through high school. I stopped buying a lot just because like the movies I need now are like way too expensive. Like I'm not dropping like $350 on a tape anymore. Like that's like I don't have money for that. I don't really want to spend my money on that. But
Yeah.
once in a while I can get some cool stuff still and be able to buy some cool stuff. And once
Okay.
I got to
Okay.
once in a while I'll still pick up stuff like if I see it or I mean I've done trade too. I've like traded art for
Yeah.
tapes. I like got
Oh
a
shit.
friend of mine, Mikey, he collects Japanese tapes and he goes to Japan and buys tapes and brings them back. And he came
Oh.
back with like a 1981 Japanese Evil Dead. And I was like,
Oh
dude, I was like,
shit.
I don't know how much you want for it, but like I'll make it work. I'll buy it. He was like, dude, just draw something for me. And I was like, fair. And I was like, I'm down. Like, and so I literally just drew a drawing for him. I framed it and we swapped. And I got this like one of my most wanted tapes that like I never would want to pay the money they put online for it, but I was able to get it through just art. So like, yeah, I still collect a lot of that. I have a small collection of uh, like memorabilia and like stuff like little things like that, like props and shit like that I bought over the years and stuff like that. Just because like I'm a collector and posters. I have tons of fucking posters and shit like that too. Posters are probably what I buy more as far as movie media stuff. I buy a lot of posters, and I've been buying a lot of posters lately because I've just been getting like crazy sick deals on them and stuff like that. So,
Oh shit. Okay. Now, I was just gonna mention because City of the Living Dead they had like a 4K release through
mm,
Cauldron, but the artwork features the main
man,
lady or female
yeah,
character with the bleeding eyes, and there's a couple other things, but The artwork specifically, man, I think it was like 50 or 60 bucks.
Bucks.
I almost ended up
Yeah.
buying it just because of the fucking artwork on the thing.
I
It
mean,
was so sick.
with horror movies, that's like what you're supposed to do, right? Like the idea is like I've seen so many horrible movies that the coolest covers are, and the movie sucks. So like that
You gotta
idea of
sell this
having like
motherfucker one way or
you got to
another.
sell it, yeah.
Yeah,
And so it's like, hey, I've never seen City of the Living Dead, but that cover is fucking rad. It's same thing with punk and metal and all that shit.
yeah,
It's like if the cover
yeah,
sucks, I'm not gonna pick it up.
yeah.
Same thing, you know what I mean? It's like stuff with the flyers. If the flyer sucks, I don't want to go. Like it needs to be cool, you know, appealing to the eye. That's like our first sense, you know, is like we're not smelling this flyer, we're looking at
Yeah.
it, you know. And it's that's so it's like same with movies and any type of physical media is important, like to put the work into artwork and stuff like that. And it is cool with a lot of these remasters and Blu-rays and stuff like that, that different artists get to do their own take on that kind of shit. I would love to do something like that one day, like be able to do like a
Fuck yeah,
little
man.
cover for like a movie or something like that.
I don't
But
know
yeah.
how. I mean, like Vinegar Syndrome is always a company that I
Mhm.
see that has independent artists, and there's different times too where I go and I look, and when I say independent, like obviously that's on from a scale of somebody who's doing like vector and has hundreds of thousands, but then I've also seen them have people on there that like have 1,000 followers, and I'm like, that's
Yeah.
fucking awesome. Like
No,
that's cool.
Vinegar
They
Syndrome is
chose.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, they
they
do absolutely
have
incredible
a
shit. Severn
so
too.
Severn, yeah. So it's cool is there's a store here called the Archive that is
I don't want to hear
it's
about
a
it, dude.
physical
I
mute.
know.
Yeah, you heard of it. So
Yeah.
I just did a commercial for them.
Oh shit, really?
And so Teresa, she does a bunch of movie screenings here, and I've known her forever from going to movie screenings, and that store is amazing. Like
Uh,
as far as like if I had that store when I was 15, 16, I would have literally fucking lost my shit. That was like it would have been the coolest thing I can
I
possibly ever
agree.
think of. And now that we have that, and it's also like 10 minutes from my house, which is awesome.
Oh,
So
dude.
like that store specifically is just so rad, and like what they're doing is so rad, and it's a tie-in. There's a warehouse for Vinegar Syndrome and Severn attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
So like I went in there, and it's literally just like walls of deep like fucking DVDs and Blu-rays and shit, and inside is cool. And then getting to a video store commercial that's like an old school video store commercial for them was like a dream project for me. Like I got to like do ugly pans and fadeaways and all this stupid shit with like some like bad elevator music behind it, and like it was super fun. That was like one of my most favorite jobs. And we did again. With that, I just did trade. I traded with them because I was like, I just want stuff in the store. I want like DVDs and shit.
Wow.
I had like they literally just put up like a Videodrome poster from like when the movie came out, like a
Dude,
theatrical one, and I'm tempted to go right after this to go pick it up. So
so they initially had their store. I think it was in Connecticut, right?
yeah, they have. So I think they have two now, and they said it was like Connecticut or something
And then
like
they
that, and then they
opened
opened another one
the
here.
Denver
Yeah.
one.
Mhm.
I know. I didn't want to
Yeah.
seem rude. It was like
No,
that
no,
is
it's
like when
yeah, I get it.
when I think of like dream type things, and especially like probably yours just as much as mine.
Mhm.
Like endeavors of someday growing up and getting older and be like, man, when I get older, I want to have a video shop. Like when
Yeah,
I see that fucking shop and I see like the people that
yeah.
go through there and just the stuff it's like, this is
It's
somebody's dream. Like
no,
this is
literally,
not like some
it's
hot rod. Like
amazing.
this is fucking
Yeah,
better than building cars.
yeah. I mean, I honestly like I always talk about like I can just hang out in there. Like I wish I could just set up like a desk and just chill in there and like work in there. 'Cause it's just so cool. It's like it's really well decorated, and it's just a cool store, and just cool that we get something like that because like I said, Denver, we've lost so much cool places over,
Mhm.
super expensive to live here now, and everything is getting moved out, and we're losing all these bookstores and video stores and all this really cool comic book
Yeah.
stores and all these like really cool places where like that's where all this great stuff comes out of, as people going to these things, and to lose all of that is super detrimental to someone who's like, I've grown up
Mhm.
here. So to see a store like the Archive, who is ran by someone who's been doing stuff here for a long time, specifically in horror movies and media, to then be able to have the work and help own a store that is a place like the Archive is just awesome, and it's just
Totally.
rad to have. And if anyone ever goes to Denver, it's like go there, like stop there, like when Giallo was in town, I took them to go to the store, and they were like having a like, yeah, I like anybody that's interested. Like, if they talk about like a single horror movie, I'm like, I got a place to take you guys before your show, and it's always the archive. So
Man, it's so insane. I know. I think it was the last time that my wife went. Somebody was mentioning this like video storage. She's like, I don't know. I think it's an archive, and I'm like, when the fuck did Denver get an archive? Like, how did this
yeah, I'm
happen?
surprised we got it. It's crazy. I think it's just because like Teresa started working for Vinegar Syndrome and Severance. I think they're like affiliates, um, and it just like slowly worked its way here, and it's awesome. I am surprised that it came to Denver and not like some bigger city, like not like a Los Angeles or
I
somewhere on
don't.
the East Coast. You know?
I mean, from what I hear, man, like just all the different like pictures and things that they go to, and like I feel like Denver specifically, with like some of the art shops and just kind of
Mm,
like wacky things that like my wife and like in-laws
mm,
have gone and done and shit. It seems so foreign. Like I'm in West Michigan and it's like,
mm.
a city, but it's not with some place where you go and it's just like a odd collection of
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
museum of fucking weird oddities and shit. And it's just like,
yeah,
like she shows like different pictures and I'm like, holy shit, what is this
yeah.
place?
No, it is.
I would
It is nice. Yeah, to have like
so
stuff like that here. Yeah.
very art driven, I guess maybe is what I'm trying to
Mm.
say. Not like I feel like maybe I'm like sound like I'm knocking on it or some shit. No,
No,
it's
no,
awesome, and I, I
no.
I
It's
love that.
yeah. It's super. Yeah. I mean, there the one thing about it's like hard because like sometimes I want to fucking leave Denver, but it's I have so much like things here that I love so much, you know. Um, and it's just one of those things where it's like I love the city so much because I have so many cool memories here, and there's still a lot of like little things in Denver that like I hold on to pretty you know what I mean? That like it's just
uh,
cool, and that's like it's like that's kind of like the punk scene here, and like that's that for a long time was like a big important thing for me, you know.
sure,
And yeah, it was like just one of those things, you know. I just love it
that's
in that sense, and that little things like the archive now existing makes me want to stay more. So
it's sick. Yeah, absolutely, and you should, man. You should. It seems like such an awesome place, and I'm gonna have to get there at one point or another. I hate flying, so I don't have
yeah,
much of an interest. I would love to
yeah,
be there, but flying fucking sucks, man.
yeah.
I guess last
Traveling in
before.
general is annoying.
Yeah, right. But before we wrap, somebody was mentioning as far as like getting a tattoo or getting in touch as far as work. How could somebody get a hold of you as far as possibly looking into booking an appointment, commission, things like that?
I think like the best thing to probably do is honestly like Instagram, as much as it's like stupid, is the definitely like the best way to get a hold of me. Probably like just message me. You know, like I'm always usually pretty open for commissions, and I've been doing tattoos and stuff like that. So it's like email or emailing me. You know, I have an email up on there if you want to shoot me an email. It's more formal or something like that. But yeah, like really, just hit me up through there and just be like, like just let me know your ideas, and hopefully we can work out something together, and it'll be cool. That's it's just this platform is like the easiest to get a hold of people. You know what I mean? Because it's
Sure.
just like you can live in another state in a different time. You can be in a completely different time zone, and you can message me about it, and it's a lot easier than like I don't check my emails as much. I don't really give out my phone number. You know what I mean? So it's like
Right.
that's like
Totally.
this is probably through here. It's like the easiest way to do anything like that. So
Great idea.
yeah,
Dude, Kane, this has been so fucking sick, man. I, I,
yeah.
I
Thank
can't
you.
thank you enough. This has
Yeah,
been
thank you.
incredible. I
It's been awesome. So
big fan. Anybody that's tuning in a little bit late, I'm gonna have this up on my YouTube page within like the next month or so. Promote it on here and tag you on it and
sick.
everything. I have to say
Awesome.
thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, thank
This
you
has
for
been fucking
having me.
sick.
And there's sick talking movies as always. So
Yeah,
my favorite
yeah.
thing. But yeah,
Uh,
again, thank you for having me, and I appreciate it and stuff like that. So
Good luck. I can't wait to
sweet,
see
thank
what's
you.
coming up with Candy Apple.
Yeah,
That's going to be
that'll
absolutely
be out.
radical.
Maybe maybe the next after the year is over. I think it'll be out, maybe done or whatever. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know. I'm not
we'll leave it
prioritizing
there.
things, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as I say, let's not get too far ahead. We got to keep
yeah,
the
but
surprises
yeah,
there.
it'll be coming out
Thank you
soon.
very much,
So
man. This
yeah,
has been
thank you.
radical. Take care.
Awesome, sweet.
See you, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
You're so lo-fi, lo-fi, a whole guy, yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.